the film was made in 1986. You'd met Chantal in the early 80s, and you'd already made some films with her. And then this was her film that she had wanted to make for so many years, and it was a real struggle to make the money, and so she made it. And you have you play the song Cette Nuit with Delphine. Sort of, how did that come about? And yeah, what's your thoughts about the film?
Well, my thoughts is really to remember. I was on the set watching, and I didn't know what we say now, that it was the result of something that was. I just saw Chantal doing that film. I saw a lot of joy, and I saw also that she was very worried because everything that she had dreamed of had to be different. She didn't have the actors she wanted for sometimes really silly reasons. Aurore should have been. And but she had Delphine Seyrig, of course, and I saw her work, but it was a big set. I didn't feel. It's now that the film speaks to me so much, and every time I see it, I see other things, and I find it. I thought today that it was almost like a musical comedy, but written for a synthesizer and un synthétiseur, the instrument that, and foot, the noise of feet.
Oh yeah, footsteps. Yes.
Footsteps, and voices. I mean, it's so. She makes so much with something. It's very resserré. How do you say that? It's. In a way, it's minimalist, and it's all the time a voyage between the dream and the reality. I mean, I don't want to talk too long about it, but the music, I think her real pleasure was she loved the idea and did it not so often, but here, it's to write songs, to write words for songs. And she loved working with Marc Hervé. But they really met for that film.
It's not. He was the composer.
Yes, he's the composer. And she liked to work on the rhythm of her words, of phrases, and how it went with the music. And she sang the songs all the time, and you can see it in Les Années 80, of course.
Yes, which is the sort of making of film. Yes. It's a really interesting experimental documentary. That And
I should have said when I said that it was minimalist, but the two, like a Greek tragedy, there's a choir, and there's the choir of the man, the choir of the girls, and it's again, there's a lot of burlesque, and all the things that make you cry. She puts everything together. I don't know how she does that. I mean, the questions of that we all have, or like that, or differently, but what is it to love? What is it to be? I'm in love. What is it? Love that lasts or not lasts? The time, everything that we know about Chantal, and it ends. It ends by, it has to be, because otherwise there will be another catastrophe that will kill us all. She says everything there, but she hides it all the time. So. Yeah, she hides it and shows it. It's a game of cache-cache all the time, I feel.
Because, I mean, I think a lot of reviewers at the time sort of dismissed it slightly, particularly if they were, sort of champions of her earlier, more avant-garde minimalist films, sort of saw it as a kind of slightly frothy kind of experiment, or, more mainstream film. But it actually is quite subversive too. I mean, it's quite a sort of searing
critique.
It's
not, again, for a musical comedy, it's so unexpected. But there is also, if you remember the moment where Robert speaks and he says he's going to have more space, and he really, this part, he speaks, he says the text really like Chantal liked. They worked together a lot so that he could get that crescendo and arrive to the climax at the end, as if the story was taking him, and you can feel that in his rhythm. that there are really things that say a lot about Chantal, where she put the importance of things in golden 80s.
Yes, and you can see that in Les Années 80
Yes.
too. She's really insistent that the actors say the lines with very precise, in a very precise way, and often the audience member, you can't really tell the difference like all the time. So.
The one who Stravinsky was like that. He would say only the text, don't put more, only the text, and then when the musician would play, he would say, yes, but you just add and that's it. And this is just the thing that is so difficult to catch.
Was she happy with the film afterwards?
It's difficult for me to say.
And maybe the reception that it got, did she?
I think she knew there was the essence of something that she got, but she had what happened all around it, and this disappointment of the production voyage before, and Aurore that she didn't get, and a lot of things made that she was a bit worried. But I think I can't say that she didn't like it. She liked it. Really, she liked it.
Yeah. No, I mean, I think it's like it's this just, just as an experience, it's such a kind of joyous experience. But then, there's this sort of subtext and the setting it in the shopping mall. I mean, that felt is really important for her, like sort of her autobiography, I suppose, too.
Yeah, and look, I saw something else today is that people, when something is important is about to be said, suddenly the mass of people, they don't let people say to each other. That's very impressive, because it makes me, it reminds me of really the big demonstrations we saw, where people try to say something and mass of people, they just eat the person who tries to say, and that's what happens there. I never saw that side of, in a way, it's something tragic, in tragedy that you see. But they're dancing, and so that's again a sort of game of letting you think that it's that, and then it's here, and she plays with that all the time in that film.
And I suppose with calling Delphine's character Jeanne, there's a link, isn't there, too, to Jeanne Dillman? Maybe, yes? But I also thought you see the father character, too, is really interesting, given there aren't that many father characters in her films. That felt, sort of seeing a slightly different side, I thought there.
Yes, I think it's important in her work, that part, and the father, and his presence, and his fragility, and his strength, and how he could be an image, a strong image.
And the sort of song that you play in the film, can you sort of talk a little bit about how that...
That was at the end, and I was there, and I had my cello, and she said, I think you should play with Delphine, she's too alone. So I did it. And then I played in 3 different places, but it was really at the end, we added it like that. I think she didn't see that against anything. It's more that for her, at some many moments of life were like a musical comedy. Chantal, for example, on shootings, she would sing all day and have all the actors sing all day. And then it stopped, and it was something else. But it was all the time in her living, this singing, dancing. And she was, for example, Chantal was a noisy person in a way of, she would be here, she would hit the table, hit the microphone, because she was moving all the time. She was very lively and very brusque. How do you say that? Brusque is...
Yeah, brusque, yeah.
Yeah, brusque in her gestures. And so that's already musical comedy. She was a musical comedy herself. So Golden 80s is one of her moments. It's not, I'm focused on, because we could say that, well, I'm speaking, maybe you don't agree, but for example, I think that Toute une nuit is a musical comedy, completely. But that goes with a sort of lyrism that Golden 80s, she doesn't want it. She plays with it, like a cat. As soon as the romantisme comes, she kicks it away, and then it comes back by the window. That kind of thing. But for me, my feeling is that, yeah, musical comedy is all over her work. In Family Business, it's also that. She doesn't need a whole orchestra. She needs just that, and that's it. Chantal liked, as you see in the film, the things to have no hierarchy in the feelings. That, for example, something was higher and more important, like a artistic feeling or a romantic feeling, and this was really flat and less interesting. She liked everything to be on the same level, which is very Jewish, the way of having things. You can discuss of the most complicated philosophical question by having just a knife and seeing if the knife is like this or like that. It's practical. And what she didn't like in a sort of idea of romanticism was that it was something that you looked above. The romanticism was higher than everything. And this, it was, I think, not close to her. She liked much better when it was, well, she herself used to say apla all the time, apla. Then think they choose how they want to go, up or not. You choose, but there's not that way of seeing where there are emotions that are more important, more that, and this is the coup de foudre, or, you know, and people are used to say, oh yes, the life with somebody you don't really like and work all your life, that's very sad, but when you're crazy, you fall in love, that's really love. And it's about that she's a bit laughing, because she's herself, she asks herself. And le romantisme doesn't question that. Romantism thinks that that's my point of view.
The film is very scripted, isn't it?
Yes. It's very written, especially because there are many people and choreography and a lot happening, so it was quite precise. But before, there's always a time where Chantal needed not to be asked too much about what's going to happen and how, because she didn't want to be too conscious, oh, do you want to do that because, and it would kill the whole thing. So she would be quite silent before, and then once she had that thing, she touched the things she wanted, then she was very organized. So it's a mixture.
Definitely watch the 80s, because that gives you a real insight into her sort of practice on set. Yeah, well, thank you very much, Sonia, for joining us today. And please, Sonia will also be here tomorrow too. Come back to more.
Thank you. Thank you.